So, summer is officially over and autumn is officially here, and that made me think, what kind of bookish content can I make for the channel? Then I had an idea. What if I talk about all the books that I have read in each season of the year? So here we are now with summer edition, where I will be talking about all the books that I have read during the summer. And I want to start by saying that this summer I feel like I didn't read as much as last year because this summer I went on a reading slump around the beginning of it all. Fortunately, by the end of it, sort of got out of that reading slump. So here we are. The first book I've read this summer was Dishes by VITA. This is actually the first book that I've ever read by her. I started reading The Invisible Life of Heidi Larry in my last academic semester, but exam season got to me and I just didn't have as much time to read and I never finished reading it because of that. But this time I read Vicious and I absolutely loved it. I'm just... How can I even begin talk about this book? The concept is the following. You have two, I think that they are medicine students in college, and they are working on a project, okay? And they have to write about some topic like to medicine and to people and all of that. And the topic that they choose is the topic of AOs. What are AOs? They are essentially extraordinary people that for some reason have developed abilities and powers, okay? There is a sort of confusion in the book because some people say that, oh no, it's not true, it's all a lie, where other people fully believe that they exist, because from time to time there appear some species videos that are like, that doesn't seem very well, fake. And one student is like, I have a theory that might be right about the existence of AOs, so they put that theory into practice. The theory is essentially that people that have experienced near-death experiences might develop those abilities. And what do these main characters do in this? They are Victor and Nellie. What they do? They were like, okay, let's try it out. So they essentially push themselves to have a near-death experience, and with that, they in fact develop supernatural powers. And then the plot moves forward from that, because we begin the story when Victor just got out of jail because they had a conflict and one of them ended up in jail and the other not. And then all of the story sort of goes from that forward. And when I bought this book, I actually bought it in this set of the story. This is only has 2 books, but from what I've heard from Instagram, Via Swab made a post where she said that she's writing a 3rd book for the saga, and I'm just so curious about that book. And in this set, I actually had it come with this. This is a character that appears in the book. I am not going to be talking about her because if I did that, then I would be giving a spoiler of the story, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. It is really interesting, amazing concept, amazing plot, and go check it out. The second book I read this summer was not really a book, but a manga, and I personally count manga as reading also. So it was The Guy She Was Interested in Wasn't a Guy at All. This is an absolutely amazing and wonderful yuri type of manga, and I love it so much. It is known as the green manga online because the artist and writer, I think it is the same person that writes and draws, made an amazing concept in manga that I have never found before in manga that I've read, which was she made some details of the manga in green instead of just being the classic black, white, and gray on the story, and I absolutely love that so much. Essentially, what is the story of this manga? It is essentially, we have a girl that I think is named... I'm looking at my notes here on the side, okay? Because I don't know why, I always forget names whenever I'm reading manga or manhwas. I don't know how or why, it just happens. So we have a girl called Haya Hozawa. I'm not sure if I'm saying names correctly. I'm so sorry if I'm saying them wrong. Remember, I only speak Portuguese, English, and a little bit of Spanish, so I'm sorry if my pronunciation is wrong in the names. And this girl, she is going to a CD shop to buy some music albums, some CDs to listen to music, and in that shop, she finds this guy, okay? And she's like, he's kind of cute though, and she falls in love with him. What happens? Well, that guy, he isn't a guy, he is actually her classmate in school, but she doesn't really recognize her classmate, which is ironic because she's literally sitting in the place next to her in class, and then the story moves forward with that because the girl in the shop that's named Mitsuki Koga, she actually knows who she is and she recognizes her, but the other girl has no idea it is her, and then the plot moves forward with that. It was a wholesome story. I'm really looking forward to read the second volume of this manga, and I also heard that there is going to be an anime adaptation of this story, and I am looking forward to it so much. If you guys want, I actually have a secondary YouTube channel where I talk about anime and media, where I react to different forms of media and I analyze them, and I can also react to that anime. The third book I've read this summer was essentially the Enneagram 6 book by Cláudio Naranjo. Cláudio Naranjo was a psychiatrist, I'm not sure which one he was, but he worked in sort of understanding the human mind in the psychology field, and he was highly focused on the study of the Enneagram, which is a typology system that I personally like. For those that know me from TikTok and follow me there, I often talk about typology, which is one of my main epic sessions, and it is essentially the study of categorizing people based on their personality traits according to typology systems. We have Enneagram, Socionics, the most famous one that people talk about mostly is essentially the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type. I don't really pay that much attention to that typology system at the current moment because my interests have moved towards others, mostly the Enneagram. And I've read this book because I was curious about my typology type, and because I'm trying to understand if I am Enneagram 5 or Enneagram 6. So I went to it. The answer, I still don't know what my Enneagram is. I'm still trying to figure it out, but we will figure it out at some point. If you are interested in psychology and understanding people and yourself, I would highly advise you to sort of go investigate the Enneagram a little bit. It's very interesting and very curious. And if you understand the type and which one it is, it can actually help you sort of grow as a person, understand what you need to grow more, and the things that you are better or worse at, okay? I'm not gonna lie, understanding what your type is when you go into the rabbit hole of typology is a crazy thing, but I fully believe that it is worth it. The other book I've read during this summer was also Let Love Rule. This is a book by an indie author called Frances M. Thompson, and I was so curious about this book because it is the story of a romance between a bisexual woman and a bisexual man. And as someone that's bi, I love representation, okay? I grew up hardly never finding bisexual representation in media and anywhere else around me. So when I found out that this book existed, I was like, okay, I'm curious. So I went and I read it. And I have to say, I actually like it a lot because whenever you are bisexual, if you're a bisexual woman or a bisexual man, you often will find the experience that if you are a bisexual woman, they will tell things along the lines, oh, she just needs to find the right man. She will find essentially one man and realize that she's straight, and then we also have to deal with sexualization of bisexual women, which is just horrible. And this is me trying to say it without saying words that YouTube will not like me to play on this video, okay? And if you are a man, then you will often hear comments around the topic of, oh no, it's just gay, it's just pretending to be sort of something, regardless of your sexuality, if you are on your situation and your gender, if you are someone that's queer and is attracted to men, for some reason, they will always assume that you are attracted to men. That's so incorrect. I am speaking about this like this because I am so tired of witnessing biphobia and bi erasure that it just makes me go so angry, because bisexual people and even pansexual people sometimes will experience biphobia from straight people, but also within the queer community, where we are supposed to be finding our people and our support. And that's what's actually heartbreaking to me, because from straight people, okay, it's sort of inevitable sometimes, okay? But within the queer community, we would expect from people that accept you and will actually help you, because all queer people will have experience of homophobia and transphobia, and sort of they can be their own support system and help each other. But when biphobia starts happening within the queer community, that's what starts to get me concerned, and what I am actually concerned, because in this time and age where it seems like there has been another attempt to erase queer people once again when things were getting better. The community, not the queer community, not being united and helping each other, instead of being focused on these conflicts between people with different sexualities or orientations or gender identities. It's just, it's not good for anyone. I just wish that people could understand that. This being said, in Let Love Rule, we are following the story of two main characters. I think that the main character name is Maya and the other one is Ryan. What I really liked about this book is that in each chapter we are alternating between the point of view of each of the main characters. So we are able to understand a little bit more about their point of view and their information. And I love that so much because sometimes when we are reading books, we only have the point of view of one character. And sometimes it makes sense for the story. For example, in books where we have unreliable narrators, it's very interesting. For example, The Secret History, If We Were Villains, it works wonderfully. But I also really like when we have different point of views. For example, as it happened also in Six of Crows, which is also an amazing book, by the way. Go read it. But in this book, we have the main character, Maya, I hope that's her name. She broke up with a girlfriend, and Ryan broke up with his boyfriend, and they are working at the same company, and they end up essentially having to work together because their boss said so, and they are working on a project together about publicity, I think. And they at the beginning don't really like each other very much, but then during the start it disappears away and it becomes into a romance. This being said, there are a lot more things that I'm not talking about in this video about the book, but it's amazing. Go check it out. The other book I've read this summer is Sears by Madeline Miller. I have to say, this is not the first book by this author that I read. The first book I read from her is actually The Song of Achilles, and that book made me cry like a baby. It took me 2 weeks to recover from the emotional damage, okay? I knew what was gonna happen. I knew it. However, I still cried like a baby. That's probably because this author, this writer, they have an insane talent to write verse, to write story. I will be reading these, and sometimes I think, does this author write poetry? Because her style of writing is just so poetic that it's actually, I don't know, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful writing style. It's amazing, really. But essentially, in this book, we are following the story of Circe. She's the daughter of the god of the sun, Helios. She's technically, because of this, the daughter of a titan. And depending on what you know about Greek mythology, you will know that there was Zeus, and Athena, and Ares, Hades, Poseidon, Hestia, Aphrodite, Ares, all of these gods that essentially are the Olympians. And then we have Titans, okay? This is relevant to be said because in the book we are talking about the tension between the Titans and the Olympians, because Circe, being the daughter of a Titan, sort of gives us a point of view of what that conflict was like. And it's interesting to sort of analyze this because I feel like there is a lot of can I say this? There is a lot of interesting reflections about power struggles between powerful people, at least in this case, gods. So that's interesting to analyze. And also, one thing that I didn't know about Circe, because all that I know about her was from the story of when she met Odysseus, and I know this because I became a great fan of Epic the Musical, which is the musical inspired by the Odyssey. And I have to say, if you love Greek mythology, if you love mythology, go check it out. The author, the producer, the writer, I'm not sure what to call him, he made an amazing work with that musical. So go check it out. I heard that it's also working currently on a musical inspired by the Ilium. And I have to say, I sense some emotional damage. I sense it. Why am I asked? Because the Song of Achilles, here next to me, happens in the Iliad, and I think that we are going to have songs inspired by Achilles and Patroclus. I am not sure. I am just saying what I know from history and from the Iliad. And from what I know, that they are in the Iliad. I'm like, dude, I hope that they actually talk about how scary Achilles actually was. Because Achilles' rage was not a joke, dude. And I'm really curious about that musical. But back to Circe, essentially, what I didn't know was that she was a goddess that crossed a lot of mythological gods. Okay, for example, gods and also figures. For example, she related to so many stuff. For example, Prompteu. If you know what Prompteu is, he's the brother of Epiphinteu, and Prompteu is essentially sort of like the creator of humanity to some extent. And while Epiphinteu is of animals, and Prompteu is the god or titan. I'm not sure now that I think about it, that gave the fire to the humans, and because of that, Zeus punished him. And Circe actually meets him during the story. She also meets the Minotaur. Why, you might be wondering? Well, happens that one of her sisters actually gave birth to the Minotaur. Yeah, I know. Crazy, man, crazy. And because of that, she also meets Icarus. You might be wondering why? Because the father of Icarus is the one that built the labyrinths where the Minotaur was. Once again, crazy connections, okay? And then later in the story, she also meets Odysseus, because if you know something about Odysseus, that during the travel, essentially, the sailors that were with Odysseus end up going in an island, and in that island is Circe. And she is known for turning men into pigs, and she essentially just turns Odysseus' sailors into pigs, and he has to go and save them. But things work out well, and they just essentially, how can I say this, became human again, and then they live again, and a lot more happens with that, including, for example, conflicts with Athena, and other gods are also in the story. Also, Hermes. What I was actually really curious, that I didn't know that there was sort of not really a relationship, just something hot going on there between between Hermes and Circe. And because of this book, I discovered, essentially, if you love Greek mythology, go and check this book out. You will not regret it, seriously. Now, my favorite reading of all time and potentially all year. I finally read Das Eis Entrance Exam. This is a light novel from the anime Bungo Orthodox, which, if you know me, you know that it's my main ever fixation. I have been obsessed with Bungo Orthodox for I think more than 10 years now. I love that universe so much. Really, the plot of the story is that, I mean, not the plot, but the concept, okay? We have dead authors, okay, bear with me, no, it's weird. We have dead authors in this story, they are characters. So, for example, Bram Stoker, Fitzgerald, Osamu Dazai, Chui Nakahara, Agatha Christie, and all these authors, even Shakespeare actually. Fun fact that I discovered, Shakespeare is actually in Watchdog. It hasn't appeared yet, but I think it's going to appear whenever the Ascendance arc happens, okay? We also have Verlaine, Rimbaud, and all these characters. All these authors in real life are actually characters in the story. And I finally read this light novel. I would say because Dazai Osamu is one of my favorite characters, and even also favorite author in real life. I've read the book of No Longer Human, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's really sad too, but it's an amazing book. And I've read this one, and first of all, I got really mad with Bone Studio because they did the Azure Messenger arc so dirty, but so dirty that made would be jealous, okay? Because, tell me why, because for those that have watched only the anime, essentially the other arc is where the light introduction. Yes, sorry, my English just battled a bit with the anger I felt for Bones to do in this moment. It's the entrance exam, and Bones essentially just forgot to mention that for some reason. And another thing, why was that sushi there? Why? Because this story happens 2 years before Atsushi joined the Army Agency, but for some reason in the anime, Atsushi is there. Just Okay, this is, for those that don't watch the name, it's just kind of confusing, but it was a very well needed run, okay? And I love this book, actually. If you watch anime, go watch Promotion Dogs. If you never watch anime, go watch Promotion Dogs. If you like literature, go watch Promotion Dogs, okay? Just go watch it. Ignore the siblings and ignore the Port Mafia and you'll be good. Just, I'm not gonna elaborate on that, just ignore them, okay? Thank you. But this story, it's amazing, okay? Other books I read this summer were the 4 volumes of Dan May, The Scumbag Self-Saving System. And how exactly can I describe this story in a way that makes sense? Because a lot happens in 4 books, okay? And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. If there's one thing I've learned about reading Dan May books is that so many things happens in so few pages. But anyways, the story is the following. We have our main character that has died in real life, and he got reincarnated as the main villain in the story he was reading. Our main character is Shen King-kyu. I hope I'm saying his name right. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. I'm so sorry. I don't speak Chinese. I'm so sorry. And essentially, he got reincarnated as the villain. He's like, okay, stop everything. Because if I die in this story, I die in real life. I don't want to die, okay, guys? Regardless, is concerning human, he doesn't really want to die, so he's trying to sort of make sure this is alive in the story, but the story is like crazy. And this story is often described as being a comedy, but I would dare to say that it is only a comedy because our main character uses humor as a coping mechanism to deal with his trauma. And if we took that out of the story, it's scary. Really. Okay, because essentially in the story we got reincarnated as the villain, and the villain dies by the hand of the main character, and in the original plot of the story, well, how can I say this? In the original plot of the story, the main character was the protagonist, the overpowered protagonist of Hanem story, where during the story he would end up with a lot of girls, I mean like a lot, okay? But that all changed with the reincarnation of this character into the main villain, because instead of ending up with an harem, the character just turns gay for the villain. I'm not sure what else I can say about this. Really, it's an amazing plot, but it is funny because we find the main character like stressing because that character in the original plot kills the character that is reincarnated as. And it's like stressing the whole time because of that, while the other just in love with him. And I find that, I don't want to be bad and say funny, but it was rather entertaining to read because while also being really concerned, it was also really invested on the idea of like witnessing how the main character is gonna end up like falling in love with someone and the girls in the story, because it was like accompanying the plot of the story from outside, okay? And the character just is like in love with him and he doesn't realize it because like in the original story, this is what happened, so this is what's going to happen. Yeah, it's a little bit slow, which is ironic because he's really smart. Okay, when I mean smart, I mean like properly smart. Maybe wondering why, okay? This character has a lot of information about what happens in the story. I mean a lot, okay? And why is it? Well, this character, he was what we can call a well-informed hater in real life. He hated the story so much and he wanted to like hate properly. So he memorized so many stuff about the story just to hate on it that when he got reincarnated in the story, he literally knew more than the author of the story itself. That was also in the story, by the way. So you guys are like getting how, understanding how this all is, kind of. And during the 4 volumes of the story, this just goes on, and a lot of things happen. A lot of traumatizing, concerning, worrying things happen, but it has a happy ending, okay, guys? So just chill. One of the things I also have read with these fantasy saga, I read all the fantasy sagas and books that the author has written. So this means that Heaven's Official Blessing and Grandmaster of My Cultivation, I read all of them, okay? And if I was to rank which stories I like the most. I would say that in number 1 we have Heaven's Official Blessing. At number 2 we have Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. And at number 3, Scumbag Self-Saving System. Does this mean like some are better than others? To me, some are better. Okay, that's my humble and personal opinion, because all stories are still great and amazing, but the one that conquered my heart was really Heaven's Official Blessing. Just an amazing story. I am so grateful that one random afternoon in summer I decided, okay, people are talking about this long word that has this little reason. It's called Heaven's Official Blessing. Let's check it out. And I checked it out, and now I am sort of obsessed with reading this type of novels and books. Now, the last book from this list, Pride and Prejudice. I have to say, this was the last book I've read during summer, and a book I have been wanting to read for a long time, because I like to read classics, I like it a lot, and we were speaking of promotional docs, and I swear that if one day I go check the manga and I discover that Jane Austen is a character in anime, I am actually gonna go insane. Okay, I'm gonna scream so loud like them. I feel like I don't really need to talk about the plot of Pride and Prejudice, because I feel like a lot of people essentially understand the concept. Okay, it's a famous book. Okay, no, you know the book is famous when straight cis white men try to talk about that with women, even though they never read the book, but will talk as they did, and they only watch the movie or a review of the movie. I'm saying because I have found that happening before so often in real life, that's actually crazy. But anyways, I really wanted to read this book because I have been curious about how to write character dynamics, and I feel like reading romance is the best way to learn how to properly write character dynamics, because they have such a high focus on how characters sort of interact with each other, and that makes it more easy to understand people relations interacting with each other, and then to actually write them, because you also understand why they get along well, why they don't, and all of that knowledge sort of helps you write better. I feel like I'm walking in circles here, but I think I left the concept being understood. So I read, I like it a lot. I also watched the movie. It's an amazing movie, by the way. I love everything about it, and even the aesthetics. I feel like if there are classic movies, Pride and Prejudice is one of them. And this was all for this video. I hope that you guys liked this video and me rambling about different things. I'm still getting used to talk about books online and things, because I sometimes don't really talk about them. I write about them, I think about them, but sort of actually putting my ideas into video and talking about them in this sort of monologue detail, sort of weird for me to get used to, but I really want to get used to. But anyways, all of this being said, I hope you guys like this video, and if you want to have more content from me, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next video, guys.